selection on your red side, as you can obviously see by Zika yet to pick a champion here. Vi, interesting last man as well, so does kind of take away some of those, you know, early power junglers that we want to look for, but I do think this is an interesting spot where AL maybe are signaling they're willing to give up that Rumble because they have a jungle trade that they really like here on this turn, and I would be interested to see if they just go kind of for a mid-jungle synergy with a lot of those heavy-hitting duos still up and available despite the Orianna and Vi already going down.
Yeah, I think notably Pantheon Rise would be a combo that I'd be very scared of here if I was Weibo to give over in terms of proactivity to AL. These are champions that both of these players, Tarzan and Shanks, play at a really high level, and it's very comfortable for the team in general. Jarvan, as we see a bit of a hover here, would be a strong pick not only for Tarzan, but a takeaway from Jiejie. It's been his most played champion across this split, but it's going to be the Azir actually first picked here for Shanks.
Oh, it was a pump
it's actually
fake.
going to get paired up with that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Going to get paired up with that Jarvan. It takes away the hot pot here with the Rumble Jarvan combo, gives you some scaling, gives you proactivity with the Jarvan. It's a very stable start here for AL, and I imagine we're going to see something tankier on the top side to round it out as well.
It's such a funny spot to see Azir, right? Because yesterday I saw some people reacting to BLG JDG, a series where Azir actually did not make an appearance. Even in the Game 5, does not get through. And everyone was like, wow, Azir priority is in a weird spot here. So Shanks is like, all right, I know Knight's not the Azir guy. Like, people are not really feeling the Azir. I'm feeling the Azir. So, going to lock that one in. Pantheon, though, does really signal that we are going to get those proactive junglers like you're talking about. Interesting note is that Tarzan, I feel like, is going to be a bit more leaning towards team fight prowess with that Cataclysm, and you expect Jiejie to have a lot more control on the map early with this Pantheon and the ultimate. And with the Yone locked in as well, we are looking to scrap early and often if we're Weibo.
Oh, the fights are coming in from Weibo. Just add to the chaos, right? This is what we wanted to see. Sometimes you see teams that are underdogs come into series like this and say, okay, well, we're going to slow the pace down and give ourselves a ton of options. No, I want to see you try and get that 5K gold lead. That's what I want to see when you feel like you might be underdogs in terms of the expectations. And I think this comp has all the makings to be able to do that right now with the Azir not being able to roam as effectively in the mid lane on the other side. But as I called out earlier, pretty obviously going to be some sort of tank on the top side. It's Sion, the tank of choice here for Flandre. This makes a lot of sense. He is the premier tank player right now in the LPL. Makes a lot of sense going into Rumble in particular to neutralize the laning phase, and both of these comps have really established what they want to do. Weibo fighting early and often, and AL kind of setting up for a potential more dynamic linking.
It's even more skewed when you think about fighting style on top of that, right, Kman? It is clear from Weibo that they are going to be about kind of pincering, sort of pushing all of AL from both sides of the flank. Somebody's going to be flying in from the front side. Maybe it's like a Fate Sealed. You've got a Pantheon ult over back. You've got a Rumble ult that can come onto the back line. AL looking to stay solidified, kind of like that Aegis Assault, a Pantheon ability. You think about it, just protect front, move forward. That's exactly what they're going to be doing. So let's see how these last four selections can really fit into these comp styles. Already loving this ban from AL. Get rid of the Kaisa. Get rid of a damage dealer that can freely fly into the background whenever Pantheon hits a stun or Yone hits a knockup.
Yeah, there are actually some really interesting options left up on the board. The Yunara taken off by Weibo. I think that makes sense. It pairs really dangerously with something like the Jarvan in the later part of the game to basically get free setup as you play further along. For Weibo, though, as we're talking about what they might want to go towards as we come out of this, I'm looking at things obviously like the Jhin that I think could be pretty stable if you want to play more for that mid-jungle duo. You have things like Misfortune that I think could also offer a lot in terms of those teamfight ultimates to combo with Rumble, and you can play off of the Pantheon stuns relatively well. The knockup from the Yone also helps in that same vein. It's the Nautilus ban, though, coming out from Anyone's Legend, kind of taking away an engage option. Erha really has not favored one engager over the other, but he definitely has favored playing engage supports. This still leaves up things like Alistar, Leona, you know, a lot of the more standard ones, but with Bard taken out as well, it definitely is kind of opening the door for more tanky supports to come through.
Really, I'm loving to see that our coaching staffs are pretty locked into trying to fight against each other's comp. But the Seraphine pick basically means, K-Man, that we have secured the whole picture for AL. You see the Seraphine locked in 2026. It is for one thing and one thing only, that Ashe Seraphine. Again, front to back team fight style. Perfectly what AL wants to do.
And I think this complements the way that they've set up their draft perfectly because it gives Jarvan a really aggressive way to play early. I actually would love if Weibo ends up taking the Ashe here. I think you almost always benefit Yeah, I mean, you benefit a lot from the Ashe part of that trade more than the Seraphine part of that trade, in my opinion. But no, just going to be Elk saying, it's fine. We'll counter with our own poke lane. You know, the Ezreal Karma still available. This has been a pretty standard answer overall to Ashe Seraphine globally throughout a lot of this year. And I think, again, both sides are set up to basically be exactly what they want to be. Like I said, I think Ashe Seraphine complements this Jarvan well because it gives him a lane to play for in the mid game, allows that Azir and Sion to be able to scale a little bit more effortlessly without having a lot of priority to fight the Yone and the Pantheon and push forward. But Weibo have so many tools in the mid game to fight already.
Yeah, it is a great first game draft because we are already going to get to see, you know, a lot of games, especially Weibo games, the third game BLG series, like second game BLG series, they draft kneecap themselves. And it was hard to really like analyze how they truly played in those two matchups because it was like, God, how do you even play these drafts out? This game one came in, there is, I don't want to hear any draft gap, you know, draft kneecap conversation. Both these two teams have drafted really, really well, which means it comes down to one thing and one thing only: execution.
And that's the fun part, right? Is
yes.
I think both of these comps have actively solidified what these teams want to do right now. Weibo are the fast, loose, aggressive team that want to skirmish a lot, but that puts pressure on them to be the ones to make priority plays across the map, to be the ones that are pushing the tempo of this game, because you don't really want to get to a late game where you have this Jarvan set up for a Sion frontline that you're going to have a hard time breaking through with Ezreal and Yone as primary damage dealers, and then an Ashe and an Azir on the backline. You can't really afford to get to the 5v5 section, especially with all the side laning potential that's coming in as well. So very excited to see this, but Weibo definitely have to show me something in the early game exactly like we wanted.
A series to determine so much for what the rest of this early counter looks like for our two teams. It is still a Weibo squad that, despite no matter what happens here, they could get 3-0 spanked by anyone's legend, and they'd still have one of their highest finishes in over a year. But AL on the other side trying to survive their worst finish in that same moment of time. The lowest they finished was split 1 of 2025 when they came out at 3rd place themselves as well. So that's what makes this matchup so fun, Kman, is the fact that, you know, no matter what we get from this matchup, one of these two teams goes home with kind of a new record. And we start here back on Summer's Rift, as always, Game 1. Anyone's Legend, Weibo Gaming. Bring me in those playoff Jiejie.
Playoff Jiejie's ringing through yep. Slayer, at the very least, in game number 1. Man, I'm just excited for this matchup. Both of these teams have so much on the line in terms of their responsibility, what they expected from themselves, and this is a huge game 1 with a lot of power picks being taken off the board and Fearless to kind of showcase where we are going to be at. We're going to be taking a look at this level 1 trade on the bot side as we get our customary heal trade, but barrier popped as well, yeah, so definitely not too bad.
Yeah, it's a slight win. We always like to joke about those level 1 heal trades, but it is significant that Hope also trades out that barrier. Its bottom lane is going to be the early game focus. You've got a Sion top lane. Flandre's going to chill in that regard. I expect Shanks to get pushed to be safe into Xiaohu, who hasn't been the strongest laner of a lot of our mid laners, so that one's going to be pretty stable. It's this double range bottom lane that is we're going to really have to get into the nitty gritty with to see who can prevail, especially in those farm tallies early. As you can see, Hope and Kael already looking to step up to try and neutralize this wave state, but we talked about these
Tarzan.
junglers and how proactive they want to be early. Good call, Kman. Here comes Tarzan, king of the jungle, looking to make his first effect onto the Rift here. Problem is, you do have an arcane shift on Elk, so he gets out, but they turn onto Erha. And he doesn't even flash. He just accepts his fate, and it's that easy. Anyone's Legend strike first in our series.
Yeah, he doesn't flash because Jarvan holds the flag and drag for the entire gank. He doesn't even use it at any point. It's a free first blood, and it goes onto the Ashe in particular. This is the one lane you were looking at for Weibo and feeling a little bit concerned about because it's Ezreal Karma, and it can be so explosive if you give any gold over. Well, here you go. Now the Ashe has a free kill and will be accelerated in this laning phase. That's a big start for anyone's Legend.
Just what the doctor ordered, and AL getting back to what they have been so good at, and mainly Tarzan as well. As much as he is our split 1 MVP, he has come under the most fire I've seen him really come under ever since being a part of this AL team with some of these playoff single game performances. So needs to stack up against, again, a foe that he is very familiar with, the Jiejie. First gank already setting them on the right path forward here. It's also important to remember that on the flip side here for Weibo, part of the reason they got spanked so bad by BLG was game 2 and 3 again came in. They just lost the game in the first 10 minutes. So this is a team we're still looking to have, you know, to show that they have the ability to be proactive and come out with decent spots out of the early game.
That is the fear, and that's kind of why I wanted them to pick something that forced them to play fast and loose in the early game, because I feel like they've gotten, you know, kind of, the lights have blinded them a bit in the playoffs so far in terms of being able to play their typical early game style. I do want to see them be able to try and rebound and recover. The spot lane is certainly not over by any stretch of the imagination, but Tarzan doing a great job to generate that lead early. My question now is, when does Jiejie get active? Of course, he is going to hit level 6, you know, a little bit soon. And once we start getting to the spot where the Pantheon can basically be anywhere, that's when I'm expecting this team to be really aggressive in terms of the plays that they're making, especially now that Summoners, at the very least, are coming back up on the bottom side. No barrier going to be burned by Elk in that play either. So definitely still some advantages. Only a 500 gold lead for now, as Zika definitely showing that rumble power on the top side.
I was watching the map, and Shanks was taking a pretty aggressive kind of recall spot on that side brush. But it looks like he was just trying to scout out to see where Jiejie was on his clear, which he does accomplish, or at least his pings are correct. I don't know if they have the visual confirmation that Jiejie is onto his second clear, rolling back down as we see Tarzan take that reset, and that clear advantage also showing through in the jungle already. Tarzan, with his timing on his reset, comes back to a tunneler compared to those two long swords. So with Cloud Drake spawning about 10-ish seconds, Tarzan will be a little bit slower to this play, but with Rot Prio being juggled by that side of his matchup, could see him come down here and try and flex his muscles towards this first objective of the game.
It could be quite risky here to potentially go for that fight. Definitely a bit of a stat advantage for the Jarvan, but not something that is guaranteed by any stretch. Pantheon, even at level 5, is going to be a bit of a menace to try and deal with, as we do see him in the area. He is going to get spotted out here, so at the very least they will have understanding of...
I hope you enjoyed your gameplay return, and hopefully you enjoy the casters returning, as we are back and better than ever on LPL English here. Seems we only missed out on a pair of kills, so Kman can't really react to what the plays actually were, as I do want to know that Jiejie does actually get that dragon. So, you know what, funny enough, Kman, we went full circle. We went off the air talking about dragon, and we come back and the dragon's gone. So I don't think we missed anything, actually.
Yeah, really, we kind of just fast-forwarded a bit in terms of the game state that we already had. I think the important thing there in terms of Jiejie getting Dragon is the item completion, the Sundered Sky being done here on the Pantheon, whereas Tarzan just now completing that first item of his on the other side. But we do see some kills on the Azir and on the Pantheon that weren't quite there before. Getting kills on the Azir could be massive for accelerating this game. We do see about a 500 gold lead in the mid lane. We'll see what AL wants to do with that, as Tarzan and Kael are here.
To move up into that enemy jungle, take up space here, is Tarzan has really made it a priority as expected and played down towards this bottom side. It's Flandre. It's the first team all-pro top laner on Sion. We really don't need to worry about him. And, you know, I'm glad you brought up the kill allocation here for AL, because with the fact that Ashe is, you know, becoming more and more prevalent in bottom lane, albeit mostly next to the Seraphine, like, I know it's a bit early for a scaling conversation. Oh, hold on. Ashe arrow from ult down, gets the stun onto Erha. Ashe doesn't have enough damage. To my point, right, being the fact that Ashe is actually kind of fitting into the mold of scaling marksman in her current iteration of build path. So with him and Azir having early kills, it does bode well for if this game gets stretched longer than we normally expect out of an LPL match.
I mean, Slayer, you're speaking my language. I constantly am talking about how Ashe is a much better late game champion. Credit for Tarzan. Looking for something on Xiaohu. He is active and aware that that Jarvan's going to be in the area. Is just going to make his way out here on the Yone. But this is definitely a scary game state for Weibo. They don't have a gold lead at this point in the game, around 13 minutes, and they really need to start getting active. This Pantheon is still going to be relevant. That ultimate is available. Grand Starfall can be dropped. We'll see where Jiejie wants to put it. He is the one with the resources and the only kill on the side of Weibo right now. All really going to be up to him. Put a lot of pressure on him in the pre-show. Could see a fight here in the mid lane with everybody around the area.
Xiaohu, I mean, he's got that sense, right? How many thousands of games, thousands of times has he stood around this very part of the map, expecting chaos on the other side? And, well, he was correct. It wasn't just Tarzan, it was Kael paired up with him. And as much as we do talk about the fact that Weibo, again, kind of sluggish in the early game, for right now, the item advantages, it's one, legendary item on each side, right? But the value, the first items for a lot of these Weibo champions brings them a lot of, sneaky strength if we do have a big fight break out at this point. Trinity Force versus Kraken Slayer, a Blade of the Ruined King versus like a Nashor's. These are clear, better items for a fight right now, Kman.
Exactly, and this is the time of the game where you want to utilize that. That's why we're seeing this pressure on the top side. Tarzan trying to follow around this Yone, make sure that a lot of that engage is neutralized at this point, because that can be where Weibo are most dangerous. If they combo a Grand Starfall on top of a Yone engage, things can get bad pretty quickly for basically anyone other than the Jarvan. As long as Tarzan stays vigilant and prevalent, we'll just say, throughout the map, then I think things are going to be fine for AL, but we could see the game get a little bit slower. 30 seconds on Rift Herald. This topside pressure is going to be worth it here for AL as they continue to use their bot lane to shove out this wave.
Yeah, we got all those quests done, which means we can finally return to Professional League Legends' favorite thing, lane swapping. Is hello, Flandre gets the big smashing and knock-up in Unstoppable Onslaught, holds Zika in place, and buys enough time for this TP to come through, and Shanks just wallops Zika into his own turret. Really well played there between the solo lanes of anyone's legend, showing why they are so good on the map.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a huge mistake from Zika on the Rumble to give free gold over to this Azir. We were talking about how you can't really allow Shanks to get out of control because there's not really an easy way to deal with this Azir in the late game. Now Kael, a little overextended, taking a lot of damage,
elf.
But
that's an elf flash, though.
That is true. That is elf flash, and more resources burned right before a lot of these objectives spawn.
What's the, I think I've heard it on multiple of these playoff casts now. What's the new LPL staple we're crowning it? I think it was Melvin talking about it, was we just love in the LPL to burn key summers and cooldowns right before major objectives. All right. Here's one of those ultimates. They're going after Shanks. He's clear out the wave, though. Kael's here. The Fate Shield's still going to hit. The Encore. Both the members of the dive flash out of it, so Kael can't even find a trade here. And now he's kind of trapped under turret, right? Xiaohu's going to take out the wave. They bring an extra member over in Erha. Tarzan's not going to be in the area. Hope can't get over here. And Kael is going to have to pay for the transgressions of trying to save his mid laner. That's a double up for Weibo.
Ask and I shall receive. I wanted to see this Pantheon Yone combo really ramp up in the mid game here, and that's exactly what we got. Tarzan has been in the area on this bot side. He wants to contest this dragon, but there really should be no way for him to do that easily. I would imagine this ends up being a trade of objectives. Dragon taken for Weibo, their second of the game, and then potentially Rift Herald prioritized here for anyone's legend. I could definitely see that benefiting both sides, but Weibo with the kills definitely going to feel comfortable coming out on top in this one and getting that gold back to neutral.
What a ceremonious moment for Jiejie in the game state, being 3-0 on this Pantheon, the biggest gold lead on either matchup, and also obviously getting over to 1,500 kills in the LPL. So congrats to you, Jiejie, on that moment. But you've now put a lot of the brunt on your shoulders for this mid-game. Still, though, all that map pressure is starting to help out Weibo in other facets as well. Xiaohu is going to be able to pick up this bottom lane tier 1 turret to make that a trade for the Rift Herald here. And now is where the game is going to become pretty fun, Kman, because the side laning is going to be such a focal point, especially with these mid laners, is Erha's already shadowing Zika, maybe looking for Shanks here. Nothing really going to materialize but a poke off the turret.
hard to really capitalize on an Azir at this point in the game, but I love that you pointed out the side lane pressure because that's where I feel Weibo really have a distinct advantage with their draft. This Yone Rumble, like solo side lane, even Ezreal, they're going to be really difficult to answer at this point in the game in terms of finding easy ways to send resources without overcommitting to a specific part of the map. While there might not be major objectives up, this Pantheon can collapse almost anywhere, and if you take one bad fight and let this game spiral, it could be really bad. AL need to be very, very aware of exactly where they are on the map to make sure that they're not taking an exchange and giving over free gold in a situation where they really don't need to right now.
That's why those 3 grubs that AL are able to grab also going to be such a pivotal point to kind of slow down that side lane threat. And I'm glad you brought up the Ezreal too, because he's not going to be a side laner, but there is intrinsic value in having an AD that you do not have to worry about catching mid waves in this part of the game. Sort of, you know, either high or in a neutral position, and Azir's escapability, Ezreal's escapability is one of those markers here, as we may have a play onto Jiejie. Soppel onslaught into the Ash Arrow. Agent of Assault's going to at least block the damage, but the stuns land all the same. The Rumble Equalizer does come out. Jiejie gets a good heal from Erha, but it's just too much damage and no response for Weibo. Down goes the 3-kill Pantheon.
And that's the exact play that you need to make at that point in time. Xiaohu trying to look aggressive onto Shanks here, but it's so hard for this Yone to capitalize on the Azir. The reason that that's so relevant is because that's the biggest spike for Jiejie in the game. Black Cleaver is done. Herald's going to get dropped in the mid lane. That's mid lane tier 1. It's going to be even more in terms of the charge, as we see this Herald actually brought down.
Oh yeah,
see if he can drift it onto the bot side. Tarzan?
Weave! Yeah, he's going to get it. Zika doesn't even have an idea this happens until plop. There's a bunch of Voidlings behind him. And this is a really positive sign here, Kman. That last minute and a half of plays, that is bread and butter AL. They get 1 kill, explode the lead off of plays on the map, and, well, even when you look for responses here, Tarzan's in the area. The vision toggle, Flandre they have no idea where Tarzan is, but they're still going to chase after Zika. Zika gets the knockup and lockdown onto Flandre. Despite knowing that Tarzan was in the area, the global map presence of Jiejie means he gets his revenge.
It's definitely a nice counterplay here for Weibo, but not exactly one that I would consider a fair trade. Hope still coming out on top in that with about a 1,000 gold lead on the Ashe at this point. 2 items completed on that champion. Hope is going to be a problem in this game. We really highlighted how he's not quite been the same player across the playoffs as he was in the regular season. You could say the same for both AD carries, but he is a massive piece towards AL's success moving forward. Jiejie at the very least pulling something off there, but Tarzan is completely caught up in terms of items, and this gold lead that Jiejie had done a great job of building is completely neutralized. I imagine they're going to continue to take the fight to this Pantheon, and especially without ultimate, this is the time to force if you are AL.
And what a game for your Ashe hyper-scaling propaganda, because an accelerated Ashe will really get to show off that damage. It is going to be a main problem here, because like you talked about with Jiejie, this like 2-item spot is like arguably the biggest the Pantheon gets. You could argue Moramana Trinity Force is the strongest spot Ezreal usually gets in a lot of these games. I would like to say 3 items in. The point being, the fact that Elk isn't really in position to capitalize on when this Ezreal should outweigh the Ashe's power is going to be something Weibo are really going to have to address as this game state rolls forward.
That's the scary thing in general, is that this Yone as well is going to become a little bit more limited in the way that he can find engages the longer this game goes. With the amount of CC that is on the other side of this matchup, you can't really afford to play overly aggressive and get caught out in side lanes. You know, this is the time to try and find those engages. Jiejie will have that Grand Star Call up in just a couple of seconds. That is massive, as all of the objectives are spawning. Baron is on the map, but Dragon, more importantly, Soul Point here for Weibo Gaming with this Chem Soul is on the map. Jiejie is in the area. Weibo definitely are going to want to fight over this.
Zika's going to have access to that enhanced teleport, so he'll get that big shield when he comes on over. Because they already see a TP from Shanks joining up with AL. They are not going to let Weibo get to this soul point position, and Flandre, with his own super TP shield, is going to stand tall in the line. But there's the Ash Arrow from Hope. Is going to immediately be cleansed out, I believe, by Kael's from Erha. So that big engage ult off the board for AL, but it's about enough space to start up this Dragon. Xiaohu is hunting for a big flank with that big enhanced blast. He's gonna go in, but it's a secure from Tarzan. Flashes away from the Fate Shield as well, so Xiaohu doesn't get on any of these targets, and Tarzan flag and drags out of the pit, and now AL can reset their battle line. Jiejie gonna go into the background with a big grand starfall, but it's the Cataclysm onto Xiaohu, traps him in place, Shanks takes him down, and now Flandre can stand tall and say, Jiejie, you cannot pass to my carries. Shanks picks up the double kill, masterful fight there from AL, and they're gonna turn their victorious team fight right over to the Baron pit.
It's absolutely gorgeous from Anyone's Legend in terms of their execution. They get in, they get out, they get a couple of kills for their trouble, and because the fight is so overwhelmingly positive, they're on Baron now. Weibo gonna try and do something to flash onto Shanks.
Oh, that was a great use of the overheat from Zika. Shanks does get caught out, but Zika takes all of his HP. Elk is already down to half HP. The Baron, though, doing good shred. The split one, all pro 80 carry Elk needs to do the heavy lifting here if AL are gonna get knocked off this Baron, but he's taking the long way around. He's left Erha up creek with no paddle, down to about 25% HP. The TP's coming through. AL need to pick up this Baron now. Tarzan will get the smite. It's Xiaohu rejoins the fight. They go after Flandre with Zika coming out of the brush. They get rid of the Scion, but trade their top laner. Xiaohu forward with the soul unbound form. Doesn't find much, and Erha will finally drop to the zombified corpse of Flandre that will get the rest of AL out with 4 members holding on to Baron.
Slayer, we wanted chaos, we wanted action, and we are getting it in this game number 1. What a ridiculous fight from both of these teams. It starts with a great play from Anyone's Legend to force down this dragon. Unfortunately for Xiaohu, he doesn't land anything on the ultimate here on the Yone, and this is where I think they end up playing this perfectly. AL end up spacing this as well as possible. Jiejie tries to pincer them on the back end, but with the aggression coming in from Tarzan and Shanks, they burst down the Yone, and there's just no damage on the other side. The Baron call from there is very greedy and aggressive, but it works out. Now
Shanks caught in an instant. He's got a 3v1 in front of him. He's gonna burn out on that Seekers, but he was as good as dead. Falls for the death brush. Didn't even see it coming. Weibo get a clutch pick.
That's really important towards making sure that this push in the side lane is less effective coming in from AL. Shanks already dying in the previous fight, so not going to be taking a Baron buff off of someone, but look at the Baron power play right now. It's a minute and a half left, and they're up 400 gold, 14 gold, whatever gold. You want to... Yeah, they're now down gold officially with that top lane tower going to Xiaohu. I mean, it's just... Oh, and as we see, Tarzan actually dying in our replay here, with Xiaohu being able to kill him under the tower as well. So this has really been a bit of a turn. I imagine it's when we got that replay there.
Wow. Well, negative Baron power play. That is certainly problematic, but I do think, despite the fact that Weibo have garnered a lot of gold back, at 25 minutes, you still came in, I don't know, Kman, do you still feel like AL's comp, this scaled up already, is in a much better spot? I'm seeing a 3-item Ashe immediately that's worrying me for this Weibo side.
Yeah, I think our eyes are on the same part of the scoreboard here, Slayer, is that Ashe is still massive in terms of playing these front-to-back team fights. That's where Weibo is going to struggle. They need to continue to try and find these picks because as strong as Ezreal is at this point in the game, he's not going to be able to match the damage coming in from Azir and Ashe, and that front line is very serious on the side of AL. That is the benefit of drafting scaling, is that when you get into these chaotic games, you just have more tools in the back end here, but with just over a minute on that dragon spawning, it still is soul point for Weibo. That is likely going to be what we are fighting over the next couple of minutes, and it's really just going to be about if we can hit those item spikes in time, and can we set up in position in the correct spots to make sure that we're not leaving these carries exposed like they have been in the past couple fights.
Exactly, Kman. And speaking of being a bit exposed, I was going to point out the teleport timer here for Xiaohu as he tries to match on the other side of the map. It was not going to be available by the time this dragon comes around, maybe a couple seconds short, so he is forced to kind of take this reset now and alleviate some of the side lane pressure he was giving towards Flandre. Because as you called out, Weibo, no, the Dragon Soul is the way that they can win this game 1, and they want all parties here early to try and fight back for Vision.
Yeah, specifically, you are on that 3-item power spike here for Xiaohu. This Yone is going to be massive if he can land an ult here as we set up.
No Flandre yet. Oh, they flash after Hope. The stun doesn't land in time. Jiejie gets down onto Hope. The Kael comes across. Hope is now going to kite back, and nobody else can get through this choke. It's just Jiejie with hopes and prayers that don't mean jack squat. He goes down first, and Shanks flies in with a Shuriken Shuffle to get rid of Zika. The Fate Shield only clips onto Tarzan, and Weibo's team fight falls completely flat. It's a flash arcade shift from Elk to get back 1, but now it's him against the world here. Anyone's Legends, though, showing some serious respect to Elk's damage. Tarzan a bit wary to step up. Flandre just eating Mystic shots like candy bars right now. Tarzan will flag and drag, doesn't get the knock-up onto Elk. He's still finding ways to kite out Anyone's Legend. And more importantly, he's buying time for Weibo. AL are not on this dragon. All they can really do is pick up plates and try and reset for another bout.
Yeah, the problem for AL is while they win the fight, they don't do enough to be able to really establish pressure here. Tarzan's gonna stay in the pit, but this is such a risky dragon to take, and he's even gonna back off from this play. It looks very, very good, but once again, some pivotal carries getting taken out for Anyone's Legend, and Weibo are gonna be the team to start up on the dragon now.
Damn, Elk. Feels like he's calling the shots. He's arcade forward into Hope, but that was L and Fies. He's still able to find the kill next to Xiaohu. Tarzan can't get the trade. Elk gets out just in the nick of time, and now Flandre's TP is completely errored. He flashes out of the pit. All of a sudden, Weibo are on to Chemtech's soul point, all thanks to their big bad AD carry.
Oh, Elk is stepping up, 1,000 gold down. It does not matter. If you can outplay your opponent on this Ezreal, it is going to be effective, and Elk is popping off right now for this team. He is carrying them on their shoulders as we see a bit of a replay of how this all started off in the first place. It's a really aggressive engage from Jiejie, but Hope just shuts it down a bit with the arrow. At least buys enough time for his jungler to be able to arrive to the situation. And now with the Pantheon gone, remember, so much of this early game gold has gone down onto the Pantheon. It's a really nice play from Shanks. If he's able to hit Xiaohu there as well, it's probably a complete fight ace, but the Yone being able to survive for as long as he did and deal as much damage as he did to the Azir actually is what turns this. Elk, of course, on the back end is playing great, being able to really disrupt and buy time, but it's the carry duo of both Xiaohu and Elk that really, really are huge for Weibo. And look at that, they've got a gold lead now for the first time in what feels like ages.
Just fighting their way forward and finally getting back to the peak we saw of Weibo in some of those regular season splits where they came in with some pretty big fixture wins. And it's Elk, most importantly, feeling himself back again on one of the most skill-expressive AD carries you can have in the game. I'm glad you called it out. A champion of this caliber. We've seen the greatest marksman in the world, not just this year, but across time, show that it doesn't really matter what spot you're in deficit-wise with a champion of Ezreal's caliber. You hit your shots, you kite correctly with these arcane shifts, you can move mountains. And he's going to still have to move some pretty big hills to try and make sure Weibo can get themselves this Game 1 win, and more importantly, set his sights on another Baron that has hit the Rift.
Yeah, if Weibo can secure this next Baron, that is terrifying with the comp that they have assembled. Elk stepping up a little bit here, but look at the split push on the bottom side. It's forcing Flandre onto that part of the map. Teleport is going to be available for both him and Xiaohu if they do want to go for this Baron play, but it is going to be Weibo who has full priority over the river right now. Kind of get to choose exactly where they want to put this. Jiejie is in the area that Grand Starfall potentially could be something to watch out for. Elk building that penetration. He is getting closer and closer to becoming nearly unstoppable, even front to back, as this game continues to go along. That's not to take away from what Hope can still do on the other side. We wanted a battle of AD carries, and I think we're getting it here, Slayer.
Exactly, Kman. Take a look at some of these summoners that are going to be critical to try and get back up here. Elk is still waiting to recover his flash. Shanks is waiting on his as well. Tarzan will take over to grab his key summoner back pretty soon here. But I hear a silent ultimate. They're going after Xiaohu. Oh, the Fate Sealed was just in the nick of time. That Ash Arrow nearly sniped him out of the jump over the wall. And now that's two pretty critical ultimates off the board here for AL.
Yeah, it's actually a really nice grab. Weibo's still going to have priority and pressure, but definitely a lot of combat power going to be nullified for the next couple of seconds at the very least. We'll see if AL can actually capitalize on that. The problem is that they don't really have a lot of inroads anywhere. Look at your map right now. It's completely dark for AL in the river. There's no way for them to walk up efficiently without at least a ton of resources invested, and it's so hard to do that at this point in the game. So see what Weibo can do with a lot of that pressure and priority, but great call out on the summoners. Basically everything coming off of cooldown very shortly.
Oh, yeah.
Flashes are going to be available. This is likely going to be the game-ending fight either at Baron or in a minute 30 with this Dragon Soul potentially spawning for Weibo.
Man, I'm glad you called out, you know, how ill-advised it could be for Weibo to kind of start this Baron with their comp, especially the fact that you have Xiaohu on the bot side. Feels like they can't really go after it. AL still feeling pretty brass themselves, are going to start the Baron on Vision. They feel like they've caught Weibo on a reset timer. That's exactly what they've done. Look at Elk, he's still walking over. Grand Starfall's going to come down here for Jiejie, but he's got to put together another big steal, and he does just that! Flashes right into the pitch and snatches away the Baron from Tarzan. It's Xiaohu onto the backline, then they get on top of Hope. He's down. Shanks hits a big four-man dream and shuffle, but it doesn't matter. It's too little, too late. The highway robbery of Jiejie might have just shocked AL into a Weibo Gaming Game 1. It's only Shanks left up as Flandre goes zombified. Weibo with control and destiny charging towards the Nexus.
The veteran leader for Weibo Gaming comes up clutch once again. That is the biggest possible play that he could make in this entire game. They are marching down on the top side right now, and these death timers are long. Weibo want to end this game number 1 right now and take us to game 2.
I don't think Shanks can do it. He doesn't have that Emperor's Divide. I mean, Elk takes a ton of harass, though, for no reason. And Weibo are going to play it patient because they have a Dragon Soul respawning. But that fight is really going to decide this game as AL respawns, and all of them came in, have to rush right back over to another neutral.
Slayer, we talk about pivotal plays all the time. This is as pivotal as it could ever get for Weibo in this game. The flash over the wall into the smite, and now look at the combat power. Look at where Xiaohu is in this fight. It is so hard to try and deal with this Yone. It doesn't matter if you shove them all out of the pit. It's over by that point. Dragon has been started. This is Soul. You cannot give this over if you're AL.
But they're completely pushed out of the pit here, and Xiaohu does so much damage to this Dragon. He's looking to come over the wall. He goes to that Fate Unsealed spot. There's the Fate Unsealed ult. He gets onto Shanks, but he gets immediately thrown out of it. But Weibo, Elk eviscerates Kael. Xiaohu's on top of the Dragon. He's going to secure his Jiejie. Goes after the carries. Tarzan cannot kill off Elk. He's unleashed and too powerful for AL to deal with. That will be the game, and it's stamped off in the most perfect way. Weibo Elk is back and ready to roar in the playoffs, and he started off by shocking AL to give Weibo a Game 1 win.
Weibo Gaming strike first, and they strike aggressively in game number 1. Everything you could have ever wanted to see, we got. This is going to be a real fun one, Slayer, because Weibo have clearly come to play today.
Weibo throwing a sucker punch of all sucker punches, and AL continuing to struggle in these later game spots with leads. Yeah, Kman, that means we are in for a series. And what a series we should have if we get that Elk for the rest of our bout going forward.
Oh boy, I mean, this was incredible from Weibo, right? I want to give props to both teams because I think AL played some of these fights really well in their own way, but Weibo was better in game number 1. This had nothing to do with setups, with scaling. We were talking about AL having the team fight advantage, especially as this game went further and further along with the Azir and the Ashe getting a lot of gold. It did not matter. Like you said in the draft, came down to execution, and that's where Weibo were just better here in game number 1.
Wow. Yeah, these are going to be some pretty good highlights to watch going back through. I don't know, K-Man. We're the AL guys here. I think I should have asked you, like, what the... I know I've played this bit with you before with, like, the panic meter stuff. I should have asked you, coming into this series, like, what the panic meter was, the fact that AL's even in the lower bracket, right? This deep in the lower bracket. I don't care what the number is then. Like, what is it now? Because it's got to have gone up a couple octaves.
Yeah, I think just a little bit.
I mean, you predicted 3-0 AL, so you're already done.
I'm already wrong. I am already out of here. But I'll say, like, this was a chaotic game, and to me, the most concerning thing for AL is that they weren't able to corral Weibo Gaming in this one. To me, what I think of AL and what I think of what they do best is taking a mid game where they have a small gold lead and turning it into a very big gold lead very fast and kind of taking away options from the other team. That is not what we saw at all in game number 1, and quite frankly, that's not what we've seen from AL in the playoffs. That's what they struggled with against JD Gaming, and you know, I think we can see from the damage charts here, all of that gold on Hope, all of that gold on Shanks, even if he was dying at points in this game, it didn't matter. Elk and Zika being the top damage dealers in this game, Xiaohu doing just as much as Shanks, even more so than the Azir in the late game in terms of his team fighting. You know, those are panic-inducing sentences to say out loud, and I think specifically being able to look and see an aggressive comp come out from the side of Weibo and for them to be able to execute on it, pull the trigger, and make those plays happen, I mean, it's everything you could possibly want to see here from them.
Well said, Kman. Yeah, it goes back to like a lot of those conversations I've seen people when talking about AL and in the idea, and also talk about hope in general, where it's like, most of the convos that I had were like after the regular split, where it was giving Hope the praise for making an all-pro team, playing really well in the regular split. But like you mentioned in the pre-show, right? It's like a team of AL stature with one of the best junglers in the world, perennial, best international competing LPL team of the last year. Like, no matter how good his regular splits are, like Hope, there's a higher bar for him. There's a higher bar for AL, and it puts a lot of pressure on this guy. And in a game like this, where, as you mentioned, everything's going right for him early, like, if he can't come up with big clutch moments in series against a depleted Weibo team compared to not only what they'll see in the rest of the LPL, but if they go to internationals again, this is very problematic. And it's been a clear problem for AL in big games for really since this roster kind of came together, it feels like.
If you want to fear, like if you want to start getting a little bit worried, it's that there was basically no point throughout this entire late game where Elk was up in gold, and there was also never a fight where Elk felt like he was even on the same power level as Hope in terms of how much he was affecting these team fights on the Ezreal. He was down 1,000, 1,500 gold, a lot of the early pressure going on to the bot side, and yet Elk was still able to outperform him. We set up a lot of expectations for Hope. It wasn't good enough in game number 1. I'm certainly not going to put the entire game on him. This smite is massive, and generally some of these team fights are just not on the Ashe, right? Like, you can only do so much sometimes when you are the Ashe on the backline and a Yone is diving on top of you, or you have to worry about a Rumble ultimate, kind of zoning you from a lot of the fight. But in terms of just raw damage in some of these mid-game fights, we saw the passiveness come in. There were no clutch Ashe arrows that were really coming out in the mid-game to find those picks. There was really no side lane action, being able to try and find their engages. They just didn't really look for a lot of those aggressive things that Weibo were looking for, and that's really, at the end of the day, what cost them.
Well said again, K-Man. Yeah, we've already seen just such big Ashe performances, even in this playoffs, that comparing it to what Hope did in this game, there are very worrying signs. I just, like, watching over those last couple of fights, like, what worried me was it feels like this team is somehow not on the same page in those, like, critical spots of fights, which is very head-scratching. Like, I know we're in the first split of the year. Like, a lot of our teams that we've already said goodbye to, a lot of the coping has been, like, we need to give them more time to gel. This is the same 5, man. Like, comms-wise, nothing should have changed. So that fight where Elk is able to, like, drag Tarzan around the bot side for forever, like, and we watch Hope walk away to go try and take plates on a mid-tier one, like, I just don't – those aren't, like, decent plays that AL made last year to me, and is what is most worrying. We'll dissect Kman AL a bit more once we get into that Game 2 draft, but quickly – player of the game, or are you giving it to our all-pro marksman or Jiejie for the steal?
I think Elk has to be the one for me. I can't be mad at Jiejie. This is an incredible game from him on the Pantheon. Let's not forget that all of that early pressure was Jiejie on this Pantheon. A lot of the plays that were made, the gold lead that was generated in the early game, this wasn't just a smite performance from him. This is not just him taking the Baron. This was a great game number 1, and quite frankly, I do think there was a jungle gap, except maybe it wasn't going in the direction that we thought it was at the beginning of this series.
Yeah, it is Jiejie with the first blow thrown towards our Split 1 MVP in Tarzan. We'll have to see how he can respond here, because those games have been becoming more and more common for a guy that we hold such a high pedigree on the LPL English broadcast. Speaking here, though, of the LPL English broadcast, if you are looking to support the LPL project, we have LPL English, you can consider becoming a Coffee member. Coffee is the best way to support the LPL English project, since the vast majority of your contributions will go directly into the show itself. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it pays on-air talent and content creators. Subscribe to our Coffee. It is a linked in chat to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. And that is, one of the coolest things that we get to do. I love the on-site interviews. Not any interviews going on after that game 1. It's some pretty, hopefully, heated VOD review sessions here for Anyone's Legend, as they continue to show that they are much more mortal than their number 1 seed stature showed coming into this postseason. We'll see if they can find ways to clean